So hello and welcome to the Safe Wellbeing podcast, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Ross Anderson of Andrew Anderson and Sons Funeral Directors. So Andrew, thank you very much for joining me today. Really excited about this, and we've had kind of chats and things like that, especially at the AGM in York about wellbeing in general. But before we get into all of that, who is Ross and who is Ross Anderson?
Thank you for having me today. So I'm Managing Director of Andrew Anderson and Sons. I'm third generation, but second owner, so I took over from my granddad 10 years ago. We've grown the offices. We've got 5 funeral homes now, so there's been a lot of work put into expanding the business. And I am a dad of 3, Matthew, James and Rebecca, and a husband to Laura.
Nice and easy. Nice and easy all in that. So, getting started with that, being dad, being managing director, being third generation, what does well-being mean to you as Ross, as managing director, as well as balancing your other hats as dad and husband?
Sometimes it's a juggling act, because you want to still be... The commitment I made when we were expanding the business was that I wanted to still be dad, to put kids to bed at night and to be there in the morning for the kids getting up and going to school. So that's one thing. I make sure that I try and get home between 5 and 6 every night to have dinner with them, to talk about their day. And that also distresses me, because I'm having that hour out of not thinking about whatever's been going on in the day or the week ahead. And then they're early risers, so that allows me to get up with them in the morning and be up with them at the crack of dawn before I go off to work. And I try to take them to school once a week. It's not always possible, but that, just seeing them off at the door, just lets me know that they know that I'm there for them. So that's that well-being, I suppose. It also takes out my day that I'm not thinking about work, because as a managing director of an ever-growing business, you're constantly thinking about something. How can we improve this? How can we improve that? And it's not always easy to switch off. But I think definitely having that time with the kids and my wife, and then trying to fit it around the golf or something in between is how I try to look after my well-being.
Getting the golf in there, I quite like that. That was ensuring getting
that or Newcastle or I try. But we go to, me and my oldest boy have got season tickets at Newcastle, so we go to the games as well, and that helps. I used to go with friends, and then when he was old enough, we now go together. So there is no chance of talk of work in that period of driving down or driving back, and it allows me just to switch off and spend some time with family, which is great.
I can relate to that. We've got season tickets at Kilmarnock Football Club, and even though I go with Dad, I work with my dad. Very much you're too busy getting engrossed in the football, and it's been a great way for us to switch off as well. It's kind of Saturday 3 o'clock, nice and easy, nice and good one. So I can relate to that, and I suppose I can relate to coming into the family business. Were you prepared for what you had to deal with, because you've been around it all your life? Especially because we had a conversation at the AGM, and I loved how, usually teenagers' responsibility is not something you have, but you shared with me about your school days were slightly different to what I certainly experienced.
So when I was at school, the business wasn't what it was now. It was a great family-run business. It had its family dynamics, as everybody does, but it was definitely families involved. So my granddad's thought was, if you phone for Andrew Anderson and Sons, you either get Andrew or one of the sons to look after you. So that also meant if I was at school, or high school, I would get called a message from my dad or my granddad to say there's a removal at a nursing home in Callander. So I would change my tie, get picked up at the school gates, go and do the removal, and then back to school for the start of the the term is the period starting, whatever it was, if it was English or maths or whatever. So yeah, it was definitely different, and it was something that we didn't really discuss. So my friends just saw me getting picked up and didn't really ask where I was going.
Yeah.
I didn't tell them where I was going because it's kind of awkward. And then yeah, I was doing my removal, and then I was back into school for my working for my school work. So it was probably destined that I was always going to be involved in the business or the industry one way or another.
I think traditionally that maybe is the in way, but yours was set listening. But I think at school at lunchtime, all I wanted was my lunch, so it would never have been.
Well, I'm a big boy, so there was definitely a need of make sure you bring something for me to eat whilst I'm doing this. You know,
it's good incentive.
Absolutely, but no, I don't think anything can ever properly prepare you. Whether it's different. A family business is completely different to any other entity that you've ever known. Like we just talked about, you go to Kilmarnock with your old man to see the game. It was different for me because I loved the funeral industry from an early age. I've got pictures of me wearing my dad's waistcoat or my papa's waistcoat, with a tie, cutting about in one of those wee red cars with the yellow roofs on. And when I took over the business, my cousin sent me saying that was your first hearse. So it was just always something that I wanted to do. But I think going into it, you never properly are prepared. Early days, I could switch off. I would never think about it. It was just, were just whatever. But the older you get and the more you think about things, it's definitely harder to switch off when you go to bed at night. Or we had the police contract, or the Shell contract, as it was known. So we were seeing some horrific sights. And back then, it was never really anything discussed. It was just, we did it. You know, it was just, you do it and then you go to bed sort of thing. So there was definitely an element of preparation would have been a lot easier if we had known what we were going into.
Yeah. And I suppose it comes on to, looking after yourself through that, being prepared in a way. And that kind of comes on to, through the challenges that you have dealt with, from those early days in and out of school, having the contracts with police and Shell as it was traditionally known. How have you looked after yourself, as well as that now being in the position of Ross, the managing director, looking after your staff, to ensure that through the experience that you've had, it can create a well-being factor within the business?
Yeah, I think that there's definitely, although family businesses bring challenges, I think there's definitely an element of, there was never a switch off point when back 10, 12 years ago, before I was MD, we were always, work was everything. We talked about it wherever we went. It was part of life, but you were cared for. There was food put on in front of you whilst we were working. We were always talking. So I think we maybe didn't talk about feelings and how we were feeling about aspects, but we were looked after and cared for because it was family looking after us. So like my grandparents. So I think now the biggest element is, and it's cliche to say it, but I treat every member of our team like their family, and I can tell if there's something not right from how they sound. They're speaking to me, and I think that's definitely been a great advantage of it being a family business. Is although there was times that you could probably have done with guidance because you were dealing with road accidents or anything, and you just did it and go home. There was definitely an element of you were cared for because it was family looking after you, and that definitely, in my role, I treat everybody like family. I know how they're feeling, from just how I speak to them. I can see it in their face, and I think that's a great part of our company and how we deal with things. We always start the day, or we try to start the day, with everybody in our care centre, our hub, with a coffee and a chat. And we try and put down phones. We try and have no computers or anything on. It's not always easy because, early morning funerals or things that have come in from the night before. But we always just try and have a chat about just random stuff that's going on in our lives, you know, if what we were doing the night before, and it's definitely helped how everybody's feeling, and you can see people feel that you're listening to them as well, because before sometimes it was just we get in, get straight to the computer, on the phones, etc., and not take that time. So it might not be first thing in the day, but definitely at some point in the day, whoever's in the hub will always speak, and we have 10 minutes, 15 minutes, sometimes into half an hour of just blethering about stuff, and it just seems to keep everyone motivated and going as well.
And that's something, you know, anyone listening to our conversation, something so simple, you know, and as you say, sometimes it has to be less time than other times, just the nature of the work that we do. And I wanted to ask you, you know, going from that and the benefit that, you know, you've brought in doing the little kind of coffee and the chats, is why now for ensuring that as an industry we look after our own?
There's definitely an element of mental health issues being brought to the forefront of anything that you listen to. You know, you can hear sports people talking about how their struggles have been. More people are open about talking about how they're feeling, and we need to promote that. We need to listen to people when they're telling us that they're struggling. You know, if, as I said, our team are like family to us, so if you had a sibling or a parent or someone that came to you and said that they were struggling, you wouldn't brush them off and say, I'll speak to you later on about that. You would take time to work it out. So it's important that we listen to people. We've got a great team around us, and if we don't take that time to listen to them, it can be a knock-on effect. It can be a dragging down effect. It can be someone might have a small issue, but it can escalate pretty quickly if they're put in a position that they're maybe not feeling that they're being listened to. And I would hate for anyone to go home at night and say, Ross didn't listen to me today, or Ross didn't take time to find out what was wrong, you know, or he's not seen that there's been something wrong.
Yeah.
So I think for us moving forward as an industry, I think, and people in general, we need to just take that time to say, are you okay? Do you know, is there anything you need to discuss? Because the advantage then is people will be able to focus more on their work. They'll be able to focus more on the job in hand rather than thinking what's going on in the background within their lives or whatever.
And you think that then, you know, for your staff, you know, at the forefront is the families that come to you and entrust you, you know, to carry out the funeral loss of their loved one. Do you think that then has a benefit on, you know, being there for the families, and it just has that kind of full circle benefit at the end of the day?
Absolutely. Absolutely. At the end of the day, my role as MD is to look after everybody within the company, and to look after, or how I see it is, I look after everybody that works within the company, but also to look after those that are coming through our door as well. And if I'm not looking after those that are looking after our company and pushing how we want people to be looked after, it'd be wrong of me to not listen to a member of our staff but expect them to go and look after someone that's maybe lost their child through suicide, or lost their husband through suicide or something, or wife through suicide. It'd be wrong of me not to listen to how they're feeling, but expect them to go and look after a family that's bereaved, you know? So
that's a huge message.
I think it's really important that we do that. I've said this about different things, but how often do we waste time flicking on our phone, looking at Facebook whilst we're at work? Even, you know, I do it, and I've always got something to do. So if we reduce what we were doing there, but we took time to listen to what our team are needing or our families needing, then it's only going to benefit everybody, and therefore benefits the company, you know? Yeah.
And, you know, allows you then to have an element of looking after yourself. I call it the sloppy scrolling at times. I think we all do it, and we can be consumed by what we see, what we then read, what we look at, you know, when we're scrolling. And, you know, coming off the back of that, you've told me a negative way of how you switch off, maybe as managing director at times. But allowing yourself for the downtime and your own well-being time, like if you can get the golf in with the kids, with your wife, or going to watch Newcastle, does that help you then step into your role as managing director and who you need to be in the industry by taking that time for you?
Yeah, I think so. I think that I go swimming twice a week in the morning, 6:30 in the morning I go. And then those days that I do that, my mind's a lot clearer than the days that probably, we're trying to rush the kids out the door for school or something that, when you come in stressed because you've had to rush out the door or you're running late to get into work. I definitely think that taking that time for yourself is so important. It's so important. And my wife, she is the backstop of everything. So I'll run anything past her that's going on in the company, and she sees things from a different way than I do because she's got a nursing background. So automatically she goes, she's thinking about how are people feeling, what's going on as well. And it's important that I share that with her. So we talk about things, and she makes my mind clearer about how things need to be done as well with care of the team. I've obviously, you try your best, but sometimes you need that sound in the background saying, what about this, what about that? And she brings a fresh light on things as well that gives me fresh ideas to look after people in the company. So yeah, it's definitely, downtime is great, but there's always an element of what about this? How can we, improve this? If you're at the gym, you see somebody working, how do we get gym memberships for the guys? These sort of things. How, if I'm feeling good about it, how would they feel? And then what element is that of them coming into work and feeling great as well? I try to give them my season tickets to Newcastle. If I can't go, they get them so that they get to experience Newcastle winning. But also they get to experience what I get is that downtime of being away from being on call or being on the phones, or they don't have the element of the responsibility that I do, but it can be a tasking job, when it's you're dealing with death all the time,
Yeah. And I think we're in the same position where we can take some of the boys and, as you say, hopefully watch Kelly win. And if they're playing against their team that they're not Kelly supporters, obviously it's even better, and it provides good banter going back into the work environment on a Monday morning. Some slagging usually goes on, but I think off the back of what you're saying there about being, a dad, rushing the kids out and things like that, any dads listening to our conversation, I'm going to split this question up a little bit. From a dad point of view, juggling everything, what advice or any tips for any dads that are listening back to this?
I suppose we all do that thing where something happens with work, especially if you're an MD or you're on call or something and your phone's going and you're trying to hush the kids up because you've got to take that phone call for work.
Yep.
But as my wife would say, it's really important that you need to answer that right now. Now, on call is one thing. You have to answer those phones because there's a family that needs you. But I am trying to be better at, I don't need to answer that email straight away. I can go and I can be here for my kids, and I can do that at night once the kids are in bed, or, So I think we need to, as dads, as bosses, we need to be there for our kids because it's important for us. It gives us peace of mind that knowing that they are in a good place and they know that their dads are there for them. And studies show, if there's a dad in there, then it's a lot healthier for there's a present dad there that's a lot healthier for kids growing up and everything as well. And we want them to know that that we're there for them. But also, if I've had a bad day at work, I'll tell my kids. I'm maybe not going in depth with them. I'll let them know that I've got struggles as well, so that they know if I'm a bit grumpy or whatever, they know that it's only because of that. And my kids understand that a wee bit. My wife's good at explaining if I'm struggling with things. But kids need to know an element that you, as parents, we can tell them that we're struggling, because then in future life they're going to be able to speak up as well if they're struggling, but also they know that they can come to you and explain that they're struggling as well.
That's huge. That's special and huge, from a young age. And obviously in the media and things like that now, where they're trying to bring, talking about bereavement and things into young kids and things, that's another element of it, talking about well-being, and that so long, as they grow up, they'll continue that, and that's really special to hear. And then coming into being, managing director, what would you say to other managing directors about, balancing everything, or anything that may help them go through that?
Have a good team around you.
Yeah.
Make sure that you talk to your team if you're struggling. There's no harm in them knowing that you've got your own problems as well. Share that with them, and then they'll share more with you. Yeah. But also we're never too busy in the day to not listen to what our team need, and if they're struggling. Because if it means you're 10 minutes late from late getting home, but they know that you're there for them, they'll work wonders for you in the future.
That's why it becomes a family. As I always say, I'm hearing more and more in doing the podcast. It's clear that, each of us is a company separate, while being all independent and being stronger together as safe members. That's key. And the last one I wanted to just ask is, any advice or tips for anyone that's perhaps maybe newer into the industry, that, again, like a lot of us, we're not first generation. I'm second generation. You come in, you're third generation. To be prepared. Any advice or tips that you could offer anybody newer coming
in? Reach out to experience. Reach out to other funeral directors. Now, sometimes in the funeral industry, we're not always keen to share certain aspects of our role, because in our own heads we're the best at what we do, and you don't want to share your formula. But speak to people, find out how they do things, absorb everything that you possibly can. If you're struggling, there's safe care, there's the safe support, that's there for you. Reach out to Safe Exec. I'm a part of it, in Scottish Safe. If there's ever a problem, I'm sure all the team at the Exec are there to help. The Safe Centre are there to help if you need it. But yeah, reach out to your local, your neighbouring funeral directors, and see if you can speak to them and get some guidance from them as well. That would be my advice.
That's a well-rounded answer, and a really good. And the thing is, some might not be able or not be keen on doing it, but there's a lot of us that are.
Yeah, of course.
Well-being, there's plenty of everything available that can just help, and I think you've summed it up really well in such a nice way, and I'll certainly take a lot away from that. So Ross, thank you very much for joining me today. It's been a pleasure, as usual. And obviously I better touch on, hope Newcastle heading into next season have a better season. I'll be watching closely.
I hope so too.
So Ross, thank you very much.
Thank you.